Good morning. Today is Sunday, August 27th, 2023, and this is the weekly Bitcoin price forecast. So basically looking at where Bitcoin went in the last week and where it could potentially go in the future. So we're at a pretty interesting point right now. The entire beginning of 2023, from January all the way through June, basically, we were going up, basically vertical. Like, every other month we were having like these crazy candles. But in the past couple months, so July and August, it's been a slight downtrend to a major, dump back down to, was that 25,000? A dump back down to that level, which basically puts us in the state where we have been in somewhat of a range since really February, but I'll say March. We've been in this range since March. So March, April, May, June, July, August. I think we're at a good point though. Especially looking at the moving averages and kind of where prices stopped and continued to rocket off historically. So let's look at this. So we came down all of 2022. We broke this, was this the 50 monthly moving average, and came below it. Didn't go too much farther below that, but then we kind of chilled out here. After that, we rocketed past this 50 moving average, and then now we're coming back. We retested it once here back in June, and we're retesting it one more time. There was that slight rejection off the bottom, and then we kind of held here. So let's go down to the weekly chart. Kind of like the same story again. We've come up this year, and then had a slow decline into a major dump, like maybe about a week or two ago. Yeah, about 2 weeks at this point. So we talked about the 50 monthly moving average. Now I'm looking at this dark one down here. That's the 200 weekly moving averages. That serves as support. Again, another retest of this 200 moving average before we continually potentially go back up, right? I think it's pretty much guaranteed we're going to go up, but it's just a matter of patience. Like, can you wait until it goes? Historically, it's going to go up after you kind of hit these levels. So as long as you can be patient and wait for that upside, you're going to be fine. Now we can kind of look at the drawings a little bit more. So like these are different levels that I put in, and just kind of showed where we could potentially go. So we can even go down to the daily chart at this point. Going down to the daily chart, we have a couple key levels that we're at right now. That first level is about 25,000. That was that first major bounce off, retest. That was pretty good. I mean, we broke this daily structure to the upside, and then we came back down again, and we just barely tapped it this time. And you see that we kind of had that rejection. So at this point on this daily zone, its prices come back down to here, and you kind of hit two things at once. So you blew through the 200 moving average, daily moving average, which that's not an easy feat to do. Like that takes a lot of economic energy to be able to burst through that. But you did hit this long-term trend line for 2023. So if we go back, if you go all the way down to, it was at the end of last year, 2022, you see that we've had this pretty strong holding trend line, right? And that's held pretty consistently for the last 2 weeks as well, not being able to go below that. So you have this super strong daily demand zone. And for whatever reason, if this breaks, we're probably going to go down to about 20,000. But again, if we're having a hard time breaking this one, it's going to be much harder to break that. And if we do get down here, it's going to be like an instant, and then it's going to go right back up. Because again, we're pretty deep into bull territory right now, meaning that a lot of people are buying in the zone. But also, if you get all the way down here, it's like everyone's buying in that zone. So it won't last long if it does get down there. I think this is a prime opportunity. You don't get too many opportunities like this. Dumps to where you just get back all the way down to where you were. You get a chance that you had, what is that, 2 months ago? Yeah, about 2 months ago, back in June. So you have that opportunity one more time to get in around 26,000, 25,000, whatever it may be. So yeah, just a good thing to look at. Let's take a look at some of the levels, right? So if this is the daily zone, right? I guess we can talk about one more thing before I move on. So you have this long-term support and resistance. So I talked about what happens if you get down to the downside, but what happens, like, where do we need to go for the upside? So right now, again, we're being supported right here. And in order to keep going up, and I'm talking about getting to like 38, 40,000, 45,000, you have to break this big red block. This has been like a long-term support and resistance zone. So if we look at it, even at the beginning of the year, we came up to this point, boom. Okay, this is an area of consolidation and then rejection to the downside. And then you came back again up into the upside. You consolidated for months. And then you finally reject it back to the downside, back to like this demand level. So it's kind of like ping pong, right? So 1, 2, they're volleying back and forth. Eventually, there gets to be enough energy to where you can break over to the upside. I almost did it right here, like almost had that close above the other side, but didn't quite get there. But yeah, you have that. If you finally break that and get a solid like daily, weekly, monthly close above that, it is absolute confirmation that we are about to go to the moon. The reason that I think this zone is so important is because it's held for years. This is a period where we had weeks of consolidation once we came back down from all-time highs. Yeah, I mean, you see we're at 2021. Yeah, so we reached our all-time high, and then even on the way back down, we had to stop here because again, this is such a powerful. At this point, it would have been a support zone. Now it's acting as a resistance zone. Again, you came back down here. This is when China said, "Hey, we're not going to allow any Bitcoin miners in our country. Like, you got to get out. You got to go somewhere else." So this is a super, big news event that caused everybody to dump real quick. But even when they started dumping, they couldn't get below this red block. So you have, how many weeks was that? That was weeks and weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2 months where they couldn't get through that, and then they finally had to go to the upside. Even coming from the run up in 2020, we came, they tried to sell it, couldn't do that, just immediately bounced off of that. So it's been historically a very good gauge of like where you're at. So I mean, even if you zoom in here, it's like how many daily candles do we have in there? Just absolute consolidation zones before continued movement. So I'm optimistic about this zone. We're going to break it eventually, but it's just going to take some time, right? Yeah. Okay, what else do I want to talk about? So we talked about daily. We'll look at levels of exactly where we're at right now. So on the daily chart, it's very clear that we can't close below certain levels, right? So right now we haven't been able to close below right here. Go down to the 4-hour chart. You go down to the 4-hour chart, we haven't been able to close. Also, I mean, we did get that close right here, but it seems like most of the closes on the 4-hour chart are happening around right here. So I'll kind of, as that, move it up a little bit. So that's your 4-hour. And then if you go down to, let's go down to 15 minutes. If you go down to 15 minutes, it seems that we are closing somewhere around here. So like this big one that I said wouldn't count for the 4-hour, that's where it's at right here. That was a 15-minute close. So yeah, anywhere between 25,000 and 26,000. I mean, that seems to be a zone of great support as well, holding up price. So yeah, no, again, we just have so many confluences here. So many confluences in such a tight area. Like there's like this little band here that's really holding price up. Yeah, I mean, it even rejected off of right here. And then you had a rejection right here before going right back up. So yeah, this has proven itself over time. So one more thing I did want to talk about was the RSI. Now I don't normally look at where is it? Yeah, relative strength index. This isn't something that I normally look at, but I think it is pertinent, right? Oh no, wait, never mind. I already had it up. Get rid of that one, and we will expand that a bit. And we'll go to, actually I need to stay on the daily chart. And I'm going to delete some of these drawings, right? So we can talk about the RSI, and we'll just kind of see where price is going. So right now, this is the relative strength index. It is a measure of momentum. It can tell you when something is undervalued or oversold. That's what this red zone is down here. It can also tell you when something is overbought or overvalued. So it's like if you see stuff way up here, the range is between 30 and 70. So if your RSI is below 30, you are technically considered oversold. If it is above 70, then you're also considered overbought. So they go in different directions, and there's like that kind of zone in between there. This isn't something that I look at all the time. Like if I'm trading on a daily basis, like I don't look at RSI. This is more of like a long-term measure that I'm looking at. So we look at this right here. We're at about 19 right now on the RSI. Super oversold, well below 30. And this doesn't happen often. So like if we go back, the last time that this tapped this line was almost right there, but not quite. Was the one that I'm looking for is 2020. Right here. It actually went below that line. So right here in 20, it went down to like 16. Right below 2020, you had, this is right when they announced COVID. You had this super fearful, macroeconomic event, just like we kind of had with this one with Evergrande and whatnot, and it completely dumped the price. Dumped this price down to, gosh, where are we at? Yeah, we're over here. We dumped price down to $4,000. But the thing that I look at is within the next couple days, we go from here all the way to, let's say, this green point up here. Like this, we got into oversold. We ran up 123% in 50 days, 56 days. We'll call it 2 months. In 2 months, we ran up 120%. Because again, this is a reflex. Like this was a reflex movement. It came all the way down to the bottom super quick. And then eventually, all you see what happened is it just returned to its normal level. It returned to that normal level before eventually going up. And I mean, literally 2 months later, once it got back to that level, within, what is that, 166 days? How many months is that? That's about 5 months. Within about 5 months, it got to the point where it just went absolutely parabolic, and it never looked back. Like this is where we reached like all-time highs and whatnot. You just got that major run up out of nowhere. So it's one of those things like you got to be prepared. We've been talking about this for about 5 months at this point, really a little over 4 months, but I think that's a decent head start to be able to get your affairs in order if crypto is something that you want to get into. But yeah, I think we're closer than we are far away from the actual run up. So something that I'm excited about. We can kind of look at some of these other ones too. So like look at the RSI, like some of the last times that it did this. So this was in June of 2022. We were still thoroughly in the bear market at this point, so it being oversold makes sense. If you're in a bear market, you're much more likely to see oversold territory. If you're in a bull market, you're much more likely to see overbought. Even if you look here. So we were overbought in January. I mean, technically we're still in the bull market, but like we had this crazy run up between here and January. We ran like 100. I can't remember how much we ran. And what was that? We went from 16,000 to 24,000. So it's about 50%, 50-60%, something like that. So that's a pretty good run up. Again, if you're in a bear market, you're going to see a lot more oversold. And then what was this? This was 2022. Yep, oversold, because we were definitely crashing at that point. Like the low was in November. The low was in November of last year, I should say. That was 2021. But again, in a bull market, we're at all-time highs here, overbought. And then you were overbought here. We're still in the bull market. All this area right here, we're overbought. So the weird part is like here, we are now oversold, but we've been in a period of extreme buying the whole year. That should tell you that we're very close to going back to the upside. We're close to going back to the upside because, again, a lot of people, you have all these people selling right now. Again, that's just like COVID, that major event. This was a reflex. This is a reflex movement that came to the downside and is poised to go to the upside as well. Yeah, so again, all the selling doesn't make sense. I'm super confident in these levels. Even if it drops down here, again, I said it's going to stay here for just a second. You have your major opportunity to get in right here, and that's a beautiful price, $25,000. You're going to appreciate yourself later on if that's something that you want to do. But yeah, no, I don't really have too much else at this point. I hope you guys have a great trading week. And again, take care. Check out christalkscrypto.com, and we'll see you next week. All right. Bye-bye.